alaikum everybody. I am one of the trustees and director at the Muslim Burial Council of Leicestershire. Alhamdulillah, every masjid in the city is affiliated to MBCOL. For short, everybody knows it as MBCOL. We have a hearse which is free for all the community to use. Whenever a death occurs, usually the masjids contact us via telephone and we provide the hearse absolutely free. Just to brief everybody on what happens when somebody dies, you need to know a few very important things. Alhamdulillah, we've done the training, the basic training that we need, which is very good, mashallah. But we need to know what happens when a person dies. What is the procedure? The first thing we need to secure is a death certificate or a cause of death certificate. Without that cause of death certificate, you cannot move the body. For example, if he dies at home, it's got to be certified by the GP. If it's an emergency death, then obviously there is something that will happen, it will be a postmortem. But sometimes we can avoid that, it all depends. But let me just start. If a death occurs, what you need to do first? First point is to get a death certificate. So say if he passes away at home, the person, if it's in the morning or in the afternoon, alhamdulillah, the surgery is open. And sometimes if the person is on, we know that the person is at the end of life, then you try and secure a telephone number of the surgery, of the doctor, to say, look, in case this happens, we are Muslims, we want our burial to happen straight away. In Leicester, mashallah, in the summer we can bury up to 7:30 in the evening, alhamdulillah. And in the winter it's just before Maghrib. So the first thing you have is a death certificate in your hand. Once you've got the death certificate, you need to register the death. After you register the death, again, it's a simple, the next of kin is the only person who can register the death. That's very important, you should know that immediate family member needs to be present to register the death. At the registrar, they ask you basic questions about the person who passed away. If you've got a medical card, it helps. If you don't have it, it doesn't matter, but the spellings that you need to give to the registrar are very important, because once they enter that into the system, and if you pass away, then in the system they remove you to say that this person has passed away. So it goes automatically, they try to move you out. Because of fraud at the moment, they try and make sure that you do the right thing. The registrar will give you a green certificate, which is what the burial department will need, or for example, if it comes through our office, then we will need that green certificate. So once the green certificate is in your hand, the next procedure is to come to the MBCOL office and we will arrange the time of burial for you. Whatever the family says, 2:30, 3:30, 4:30. But it's very important that you should know that you don't make elan of the time of the burial until we have given you the okay, because we need to make sure that the grave is dug for you. Okay? Alhamdulillah, in Leicester you can have grave with a box and without a box. You've got a choice. So at the time of the death, if you decide that you want to bury the deceased in a box, you can put him in a box. If you want to put him as natural as possible, you can tell us, we arrange that as well. So we've got both options in Leicester. I must just say a few things that when you pick a body from the hospital, when somebody dies in the hospital, the person is not released from the ward. The death occurs in the ward, but the deceased is taken to the mortuary. You do not take the body from the ward. You have to take the body from the mortuary. And once you've got the death certificate from the patient affairs, now in the hospital it works different. You have to go through patient affairs. Patient affairs will organize the death certificate for you. If they feel there is a need for the coroner to be involved, then they'll call the coroner. For example, if somebody has a heart operation right now and he dies on the table, okay, in that case they will do a postmortem, because they have to clear that the doctor was not negligent in what he was doing. So sometimes we tend to get worried, what's happening, why they're doing this, but it's the law of this country. If the coroner gets involved, whatever the coroner says happens. Alhamdulillah, again, we now have got facilities to contact the coroner 7 days a week. So mashallah, in Leicester we have done some progress, and we are fortunate that because everybody in the city Do you know we have 55 masjids now in the city? And if all the 55 masjid has one voice, we have a strong voice in front of the council to say that we need these facilities for our people. As you know, the cemetery is being full right now. MashaAllah, the new cemetery is already ready for us outside, behind the janazah where we pray Salah. After that, there's a road being built, inshallah, very soon. So we'll have the new cemetery there. So in the hospital, it's the patient affairs office who will give you the death certificate, and then you arrange for registration, and then you arrange to take the body. Alhamdulillah, again in Leicester, we have facilities that as soon as the person passes away, if there is no complications in the hospital, the duty manager, even in the middle of the night, will issue you a death certificate. So if you as the family request for the duty manager to come forward, he will arrange or she will arrange for the death certificate to be issued for you at the middle of the night. So long as there is no complications, they will give you the certificate. But you have to be very patient, don't shout at them, just say this is our request, and they give it to us, alhamdulillah. At the same time, we can also arrange to bring the mayyat to our mortuary straight away. But if you want to leave the mayyat in the night and in the morning, we can arrange to bring the mayyat. But at least the death certificate is secure, then you know that the next day we can have the janazah straight away. It's very simple, but also at the same time I was mentioning to Moulana that alhamdulillah in Leicester, when the mayyat is received from the hospital following an operation or anything like that, we make sure that the needles are removed, we make sure any catheters are removed, and if he's had a post-mortem, then they make sure his body is sealed nicely. The difference is that after a post-mortem, you don't see a normal body, and that's why it's very important when Moulana said that when you see a mayyat, you do not disclose these things. And sometimes, this is only a very rare occasion, but in Leicester it has happened many times, where the body is given to you in a black bag. In those circumstances, they tell you there, do not open this bag. And if that happens to your family, then do not just do what you want to do. Seek advice from an alim before you do anything. Before you even cut the bag for doing ghusl. You must seek advice from an alim. It's very important. Because certain cases we are not allowed to open. If something like that comes through, you can't just open the bag and do it, because if you do that, you can be arrested for doing something illegal. I know in Islam we have to do ghusl, but sometimes there is a limited way of doing ghusl. As Moulana said, even just by pouring water on the mayyat is sufficient to say that the ghusl is done. So in those cases, if that affects you as a family, seek advice with an alim. Come and see ourselves. Alhamdulillah, I've got 25 years experience in the field. So alhamdulillah. And I encourage more brothers to join the Muslim Burial Council whenever you can. Especially our masjids. We need to make them more aware that they need to join, because any funeral that is taken place in the city has to be through a funeral director. So the masjid acts as a funeral director when you are doing a funeral. And hence the bill comes to the masjid, because as an individual you can't do a funeral. You are not allowed. Only a funeral director can do a funeral. So if you remember, the Muslim Burial Council of Leicestershire, MBCOL, in short, we are on the website. There's a lot, all the advice you need is on the website. Jazakallah.